Press record, we're going to pray, and then we will get started. Father God, we thank you so much for this time together. Thank you so much for your Holy Spirit that empowers us, that guides us, that gives us grace in the midst of our weaknesses, transforms our minds as much as our hearts. Lord, we love you, and we commit this class to you in Jesus' name. And everybody said, Amen. Amen. All right. So we've talked a lot over the course of this semester about kind of the world that preteens are in, all right, and how we could maybe apply a biblical worldview to a generation that accepts every single worldview as truth. And we have to determine there is one truth, all right? There's not everybody's personal truths. There's only one truth. His name is Jesus. I had a friend tell me just the other day that he's getting really tired, and this is an African American friend. He's like, I'm getting tired of the Black Lives Matter movement, where Christians are more concerned about apologizing for racism rather than sharing the gospel. And as a black man, he was just like, I'm just sick of it. He's like, I am a Christian before I am a black man. That's what he was telling me. And, how do we, this whole semester has been, how do we apply this truth of Jesus to every single circumstance we find ourselves in? Well, through the course of the rest of this semester, now that we understand the world they live in, now that we understand a little bit of details about their emotional development, their physical development, their worldview development, how do we actually practically minister to preteens? So I'm going to start off with a question. I want you guys' participation in this. So, who was your most meaningful relationship when you were ages 10 to 12? Anybody? Who was your most meaningful relationship? Big sister. Who said that? All right. Why do you say your big sister?
Because she's like my best friend.
So she was your best friend. How many years difference?
Like 2.5 years.
2.5 years. So she was like in high school, like starting high school when you were a preteen?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else? Who?
My cousin.
And how old was your cousin?
He was only a few months younger than me.
And why was that meaningful?
We had the same interests.
Which was?
Comic books, cartoons, video games.
Nice. All right. Anybody else? Who is your most meaningful relationship, ages 10 to 12?
Apart from my family, I had 3 best friends, and I spent most of the time with them.
And where did you meet these 3 best friends?
At school, at home, everywhere.
Okay. And you guys did everything together?
Everything.
You still talk to them?
We still, yes. We do.
That's amazing. I love that so much. That's called faithfulness, people. Anybody else?
My daddy.
Why do you say your dad?
No, because he explained everything for me about sex, about the period.
Okay.
Why? Because
That's an awesome
my
dad.
mom don't like speak a lot, and she asked me say sorry, my daughter, because I don't know tell you,
Okay.
because I don't know the problem with her heart, but my dad explained.
That's great. I love dads that way. And I want to say, especially when it comes to like talking about a woman's cycle, most men are just like, Mama, you take care of that. I don't want anywhere near the Red Bull. I'm going to stay away, and I'm going to do this thing. My most meaningful relationship in 5th grade was my best friend, Shane. And I had just moved away. We had been in this apartment for a number of years, and then we had just moved into a house, and we grew up in apartments and kind of inner city living, and we got this government subsidized house, but back then you could apply government subsidized housing to like different neighborhoods. You didn't have to be in one particular neighborhood. You just got like a stipend, and you can apply that whichever neighborhood you chose. So we moved to the suburbs, and we were the crazy family that didn't know what suburban life was like. And living on this street where everybody was very prim and proper, and there was like these unwritten rules that people had to live by, and we were running around like crazy banshees, doing crazy stuff, throwing dirt at neighbors, and peeing on people's flowers, and like just weird, crazy stuff. We were wild children. So I go to this elementary school. The last grade of this elementary school is 5th grade, and I get involved with this kid named Shane. And him and I was at his house every chance that I could. And we would hang out together. We both had this unholy crush on Mariah Carey. I don't know why, but back then she was like the bomb.com. Her and Cindy Crawford, like they were like it. If you've been to Rooms to Go, yeah, she's a furniture person now, but she was big stuff back then. And then we would listen to Coolio and try to memorize all the lyrics to Gangsta's Paradise. And we would have competitions and like who can memorize this song faster. And to this day, I still know like half the song. And Amish Paradise from Weird Al Yankovic, the counterpart. Both of those are equally amazing. So like we just had a lot of fun together. This wasn't like this holy relationship I had, because as I told you before, I was not a Christian until I became an adult. And so Shane and I just hung out. We went to the creek. He had these woods that we would go play in and build forts and all this crazy stuff. And one day, for some reason, I was so caught up in playing that there was like no bathroom around. And so I ended up having an accident in my pants in 5th grade. And then my friend Shane was just like, hey, like a good friend would, right? You know, anytime you have an accident, good friends point and laugh. Don't let anybody tell you any differently. So, but what I didn't realize, like inside, like he was just like, oh, that's disgusting. And like we stopped being friends because of this, and I had like no idea why. And so like come 6th grade, the grade where I pretended to be a cripple for 6 months, a lot of that was as a result of I didn't want to deal with, friends again. Like I just felt like I was betrayed in 5th grade, and I didn't want to go back into dealing with more people betraying me. So I was just like, I'll just find a way to be by myself. But the reality is, those ages of 10 to 12, we are getting a lot more independent. Parents are a lot less of an influence than they used to be in their elementary years. In those formative years of birth through preschool, the parent is basically it. The parent is paramount. And then then kindergarten comes along, and that's their first real taste of independence. And then elementary years are preparing them on how to deal with parents versus peers. And then preteen age is when they start to get peer relationships outside of the home. That's why when I asked you, what are your most meaningful relationships? 75% of you said kids your own age, or kids around your same age, whether they were family or school or elsewhere. Because that age is starting to get a little bit more independent. You're starting to seek for socialization outside of the home. And so today we're going to talk about what are those ways that preteens develop socially. And if we are not meeting these needs, they will stunt their growth to where you have situations like Gen Z adults at age 23, 24, still not knowing how to adult because they're stunted. They never got some of these relationships. These relationships teach us how to interact with each other, how to interact with people that are over us, how to interact with people that are under us. And all of these relationships are critical for the development of a healthy preteen. So we talked a little bit about peer interactions. These are friends, cousins, neighbors, acquaintances at school or church, sports. And a lot of times you're going to first develop on like activities or interests that you guys have in common. All right, a lot of my friends were friends that would come over and play the same video games that I liked. If there was a kid that was really into playing football, I really wasn't friends with that kid because I didn't play football. But the kids that played football would hang out with the kids that played football. And a lot of times we label those things as cliques, when in reality we're just around people with the similar interests or shared activities or shared experiences. I am the type of person that would go out of my way to find everything about everybody else, and I find that interesting. And because I just find people interesting. And in a lot of ways, we've talked about this, how the Apostle Paul became all things to all people. But in reality, most people don't have that type of attitude, especially a preteen. Preteens are still very self-absorbed. Do you know a preteen that is 100% not self-absorbed? I've never met one. Because it is a critical time where they're constantly evaluating and criticizing themselves. So there is a level of self-absorption that's almost godly because it's just how God created us. And so we need those interactions, we need those experiences, we need to send them off to school, we need to send them off to sports, we need to give them some sort of experience, even if you're homeschooling. You and your family are not going to be enough. Because preteens, God has put it in the sense of just putting it ingrained inside of the human development cycle, where that age group is looking for relationships outside the home. Like, even whether it's in the United States or any other culture, that expression, it takes a village to raise a child? Well, by the time that child's a preteen, that village really comes in handy. Because then you can still have safe spaces, but you're also training them to be independent and making their own choices. So number 2, in terms of types of relationships to foster in the life of a preteen, is family interactions. While parents are not the primary source of relationship in the life of a preteen, they're still very significant, and their role just changes.
Yeah.
So instead of doing everything for the preteen, it's about guiding the preteen. Asking them questions. Hey, how would you react to this sort of thing? Get involved in their life. Don't give them don't put a light on them and be like, hey, where were you on the night of July 24th? Don't interrogate them, but show interest in their lives. Let them know, hey, I still love you, I'm still here for you. And for a lot of parents, that preteen age becomes a challenge because they're like, little Johnny doesn't need me as much anymore. Oh my goodness, especially 18, when our son graduated high school and then went off to YWAM, the very first day, my wife was just like, my baby. But then a week later, my wife was fine, and I was just like, look at Jesse. By the way, Jesse turns 21 today, so.
Oh, his birthday's today?
His birthday's today.
Good people are born today.
That's right. So we're taking the Red Robin, and I'm not going to tell you via video what we're going to do for his 21st birthday. So, all right. Not safe for now. All right, so family interactions become very important. Parents, grandparents, siblings, aunts, uncles, they all play a vital role in the life of a preteen. But you just have to have enough confidence to say, okay, well, my roles change a little bit. I'm not going to be the primary source of inspiration for this child. I'm not going to be the primary source of provision for this child. Because maybe the preteen's starting to do their own lemonade stand or do their own lawn mowing business or finding different ways to make money so that they can spend their own money and make decisions. The third type of relationship is mentors. And these are very similar to family interactions in the sense of guidance, but they almost become, in the life of a preteen, in terms of their focus, almost more so because it's their choice. You know, they're not choosing their parents, so to speak, but they may be choosing their coaches or their teachers or their pastors or community leaders. And a lot of times, modern development, like a lot of parents, we've talked about helicopter moms. A lot of parents hover over their child so much that they're making decisions for their preteen, they're making decisions for their teenagers. So by the time they're 18 and going independent, they don't know how to make a choice. They don't know how to be independent. They don't know how to go out in the world and do stuff because mom or dad has done everything for them. That's why I really truly believe that, preteen ministers or football coaches or dance instructors or community leaders really become vital, because then you're having different voices. Now, as a parent, you still need to do your due diligence. You need to have a relationship with the coach. You need to have a relationship with the community leader or the preteen pastor or the teacher. Parents still need to do their work and build relationships with the relationships that their preteens have. However, you still need to make sure that preteens have the at least illusion of choice. So we're going to talk about some different practical how-tos to foster each of these type of relationships. Yes?
Can you share an example of an illusion of choice?
What's that?
Can you share an example of an illusion of choice?
Okay, so let me think of a good example because... All right, so say your parents are very much like, hey, we want to eat healthy in our home. So then instead of telling your preteen, hey, what do you want for dinner? You're like, hey, you can choose anything in our house to have for dinner. That's kind of an illusion of choice because you're not giving them the choice of pizza and burgers. You're giving them the choice of tofu and soy ramen or something, I don't know.
Rice cakes.
I saw this really funny meme. It had 2 gallons of milk, and they were talking to soy milk, and they're like, oh, look, it's Spanish milk. Soy milk. Yeah, I thought that was funny. All right. It's okay. My wife, she cringes at me all the time until I actually say something funny. So, does that make sense still in terms of the illusion of choice? So you're wanting to give them options, give them choices that they're having, but at the same time within certain parameters.
Narrowing it down.
Right. So in terms of fostering peer relationships, here's some of the things that you can do. And we're going to really break this down over the next couple of weeks. I'm just giving kind of an overview today. So weekly small groups. These are a great way. You can create a squad together. It's an honest place to open up with each other. I told you about, with our guys that we did the Way of the Warrior training, and we had a group of 12 that really became like brothers for a couple of years. The cons, though, so those are the pros, but the cons, leaders are not always intentional. They don't know how to make it really great, so it becomes really shallow. How many of you have ever been in a small group and you're wanting that you ask a deep question and you just hear crickets chirp? You guys been in that situation?
Yes.
I had one situation, we were doing a youth small group just last Wednesday, and we had asked, so where are you at with your relationship with Jesus? And we called on this one guy, he was just like, I'm not in school, so I don't have to be called upon. I was just like, oh, okay. But then later on, even without being prompted, he was just like, so is it okay if I don't feel anything? And how do I go about healing my emotions? We were trying to ask questions with him, and he was like, nothing. And then all of a sudden we're just kind of chilling, and out comes this question that I was just like, okay, we're gonna have to talk about this alone, just to get to some nitty-gritty stuff. But a lot of leaders are just they may not know how to ask the right questions. They may not know how to break the ice or build relationships. With any small group, you need to build relationships before you're going to get to those really deep answers. Just because you show up on a Sunday morning and it's your turn to do the small group doesn't mean it's going to be fruitful. They can spot someone who's just showing up for the sake of obligation versus someone who's invested in their life for the sake of relationship. There's a huge difference. Worlds of difference. So the other things that you can do is on-campus events. Examples would be like a lock-in, an end of a semester party, a back-to-school party, a movie night, a game night. All these things are really great relationship builders where peers, where you can even encourage them. Like, hey, whoever brings a friend gets 10,000 points for their team, create team camaraderie. I love competition. Who here's done YFM? Anybody? All right, team competition is huge, right? It's one of the things that makes YFN great, is the team competition. In fact, when I was at KFN, I was just like, we need team competitions. And all the people were like, no, we just need to do crafts and paint pretty pictures. And we're just like, yes, but crush the other team when you do it. And all the little first grade girls, but Mr. Chris, you're so aggressive. That's how you win.
No mercy.
That's right. I still don't know why God put me in kids ministry, just FYI. But there's a place for me, I guess.
Amen.
So, some of the pros of these events, competitions, movie nights, back-to-school parties, all this stuff, they're tons of fun. You can get super creative. Maybe it's a time where you're having donuts, and maybe they're not allowed to have donuts at home, and you're telling mom and dad, hey, just FYI, we're having donuts, and maybe the mom's comfortable with it, maybe not. We've had situations, even in our Steve and I preschool, where the kid can't eat a cupcake for someone's birthday because it's sugar, and sugar is of the devil. But hopefully, you guys are saved and don't feel that way. All right. So, oh my goodness, this guy's going to hate me after this class. All right, other pros, they're very memorable. Very memorable. I still can think of like the lock-ins that I was involved in. They're great, again, great promotion to bring friends. They're great connecting times. I mean, how many of you can remember when you were a preteen or a teenager, like can you think of those events that you went to? Like raise your hand if you have a good memory of an event that you went to during those ages. And some of us have some bad memories because they weren't led well. Because honestly, a lot of this stuff is makes or breaks on the leader. Like I say that with homeschooling all the time. Homeschooling is amazing if the parent's amazing. Homeschooling sucks. It's the worst if the parent is not intentional. And so the same thing goes with these events. If you're really intentional, you can have an amazing time. Like we had a situation, my wife and I were counselors and training directors for KFN, and we had this 24-hour lock-in. And it was 1 a.m., and we had like glow-in-the-dark capture the flag, and we didn't have Little Caesars pizza, we had Sam's pizza from Cedar Hill. Y'all know what Sam's pizza is? That's the good stuff.
Amen.
FYI. So we were like, we're not going to get no mamby-pamby, like kids' birthday party pizza. We're going to get man pizza with spinach. All right, so I do like me some spinach. So anyways, at like 1 a.m., after we had this like really fun time, like we just had everybody get to a section of the room, a little bit smaller than this, but roughly the same size. Everybody just kind of got into a corner, into a spot by themselves. We said, all right, we're just going to put on some worship music and we're just going to seek the Lord. And then one person started repenting of their sins. And he was just like, I just want to publicly confess that I've been addicted to pornography and I want to receive forgiveness from God. And then another person started repenting. Another person started repenting. One person was just like, I betrayed a really close friend in here and I just want to say, like, I haven't apologized to you and I want to publicly apologize. And over, like, that was memorable for them, but that was memorable for me too. That's not something I planned. I wasn't like, 1 a.m., repentance. You schedule stuff like that, I promise you it's not going to go over well. But, you know, when you plan something, a lot of times the Holy Spirit just comes and does things really special like that. The cons of doing these sort of events, though, is cleanup is very heavy work after the event.
Yes.
Prep work before the event is also very extensive and oftentimes can be expensive. But if you have a good team, if you have a good support system, say you're doing this in a church, and you've approved it with the pastor, and you've brought it before the elders, and you've got all the parents on board, like a lot of times it requires that little thing, there's a little word that's going to change your life. And if you apply this to everything you do, it's going to change your life. I promise you, one word will change your life, and you're going to see all those dreams fulfilled based on one word. And that word is effort. If you put forth the effort, I promise you, you're going to see things that you never thought possible. If you're just waiting for God to show up, it's going to be sloppy. Because God wants to partner with you, not do everything for you. You see, when we're talking about pure relationships and like God kind of understands his role, he's teaching us independence. He's teaching us how to walk on our own 2 feet. He's teaching us how to wean off the baby bottle, so to speak, and be an adult. And so that one word, effort, is going to change everything for you. All right? It's okay to do a ton of prep work. A lot of times, that's my favorite part because that's the creative process. And you can do some really cool stuff. One of the things I hate about this semester particularly is because usually our final is that on a Tuesday night we would go to the preteen ministry on campus and actually lead a party for preteens. That would usually be the final. But we can't do that. Because usually, and we would get super creative. I would show you how we would have $150 and how to stretch that to make it look like we spent $1,000. With just a little bit of effort and creativity. And all of you would have had a part to play. Some of you would have played worship. Some of you would have led games. Some of you would have been group leaders. Some of you would have been cooking in the kitchen. And like last time, we actually had our Way of the Warrior party. And we had like Japanese food. I had one of the Japanese students make Japanese omelets, tamagoyaki. And I was just like, and the Japanese student didn't know how to make tamagoyaki. And I was just like, but you're Japanese? And she's just like, yes, but I don't cook. I was just like, okay. So the white kid was telling the Asian kid how to make Japanese food. It was the strangest thing. But I loved it. And it was just a really fun event, and we had a time. We actually brought Jesse's swords, and we had this big rock, and we showed them like how to make swords and actually set the rock on fire. And like the whole table was on fire at one point, and all the kids were like, oh my goodness, and all the leaders were like, oh. And I would have shown you how to do that in a safe way where nobody gets burned. And it was amazing, but we don't get to do stuff like that this semester. Instead, you guys get to write a report of how to make a preteen party. See why I hate this?
Yeah.
And yes, looking into the camera, it's your fault, COVID. All right. Off-campus events that you can do. Pool parties, sporting events, arcades, laser tag, theme parks, concerts, camping, etc. Let your mind go wild. Pros, there's very little prep and cleanup in terms of an event, but it's a good way to get away from the normal settings, and friends may be more likely to come if it's not like at a church, so to speak. If you're like, hey, come to my church, we're having this fun event, and the friend's just like, eh. But if you're like, hey, come to laser tag, and friends just like, oh yeah, I was going to go laser tag anyway, it's cool. So cons usually requires more volunteers for security purposes, and lots of paperwork such as release forms. Whenever you're dealing with a minor, whether it's preschool, elementary, preteens, or youth, anytime you're dealing with a minor, protect yourself and get a signature from the parent. Always. once a year in our ministry, we have the parents sign our release form. And it's good for that following year. What it says is, I as the parent, do not hold this ministry liable for whatever happens. I give them permission to blah, 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 blah. They put in their medical information in case something happens on one of these trips, which usually it doesn't, but you got to keep yourself safe, keep the child safe. At all times, you want relationship with the parents. Like, the reason why my wife and I have been able to talk to preteens on subjects like abortion is because we built relationship with parents who trust us enough to talk about that subject with the preteen. But if you're the type of student that's just like, well, I'm going to talk about this stuff because it needs to be talked about, and you have no relationship with the parent, get ready for some backfire. Because the thing parents hate the most is being blindsided. They don't want, like, hey, what'd you learn at church today? We learned about homosexuality! Yay! And the parents just like, what? I thought this was church. And you may have some parents who are like, hey, I'm not comfortable having my child talk about this. And don't take offense to that. Just simply say, just bless them, and they're the ones responsible for their child, not you. That's right. At the end of the day. So just bless them and say, hey, well, we're going to be talking about this next week, so we'd love to see them come again. And we had one parent who was really comfortable with us talking about like racism, but not talking about abortion. So the child came for our talk on racism and didn't come for our talk on abortion, and the parent really wasn't mad at us. It was just like, hey, we haven't really discussed this particular topic yet, so we want to introduce them before you say anything else. Which I think is great. I think parents should be the first conversations for some of those things. Again, we're going to go into a lot of detail over the course of the next couple of weeks in terms of the nitty-gritty about how to lead some of these events. But events to foster family relationships. And I'm going to kind of segregate these between like boys and girls events with the understanding and the caveat or disclaimer that some of these are perfectly fine to do for either one, okay? Just before you're like, well, that's not a boys' activity, I'm a girl and I like doing that stuff. It's fine. Don't talk to me after class. All right. So for boys, father-son activities such as like tournaments or sporting events. My son's going to paintball this Saturday. Laser tag, going to see the latest Marvel movie, pizza night with games. We did sword ceremonies, going out and just working out and lifting weights, going to a car show, doing building projects. I really am no good at working on cars. I can change a tire, I can fill with gas, that's about it. All right, but my son, he's going to Texel to be a mechanic, so he loves working on cars. So a lot of times we'll work on a car together just simply because I just want that relationship, and guys typically connect on activities. Typically, and again, we're talking in generalities, there are exceptions, but typically men are not going to be those type of people that plan events like, hey, let's have a breakfast and talk about our emotions. And then let's have 30 minutes of singing our love to the Lord and confess how grateful we are that we're His bride. Praise Jesus. Guys are typically not going to do that, and yes, I've been to men's events like that, and they suck. Like me and a friend would be like, hey man, how's your gun collection coming along? Just, oh man, I just bought this new gun. And then all of a sudden it's just like, the leader's just like, okay, we're going to talk about how we feel about our spouses. It's like, I am not going to talk about that with another person. That stays between me and my wife. I digress. So some really great things to do with girls are mother-daughter tea, makeovers, crafting parties, fashion shows, talent shows, going to visit the nursing home, having bake sales, lemonade stands, day at the zoos, pajama parties. Now, you may be the tomboy girl that's just like, you know what, I like building projects and I like car shows. You know, then do those things. There's nothing that says you can't do them. But when you're looking at generalities in terms of, all right, look at who your audience is. Who is your audience? So if you're like building relationships within your family, if you have that tomboy girl, or you have that boy that likes to bake and go to the zoo and wear pajamas, that's cool.
Talk about your feelings.
Yeah. If that boy likes to talk about his feelings, guess what? I want to talk about that feelings hardcore. We'll be all committed. Be like, yes, I feel this way. All right. I'll talk about my feelings on veganism all day. I pick on veganism because it's an easy thing to pick on, not because I hate veganism, just FYI. Things for like everybody. And we've done preteen picnics, Habitat for Humanity, where you go out into poorer neighborhoods and build homes, go to the soup kitchen, homeless shelters, do evangelism on streets. We're going to talk about how to do evangelism with preteens in a couple weeks. Go to concerts together, museums. You can adopt a block and do park cleanup. You can do kids crusades. There's like a ton of stuff you can do as a family. Like invite the parents, invite the grandmas. Honestly, there's a grandma in our church that I employ her. I was like, I need you at every single event. Because she goes to Chicken Express and gets this free sweet tea every single dang time. She goes to Walmart. We had a tornado in our church. Like yesterday was our 1-year anniversary that a tornado devastated our church. I don't know if you knew about that. But it's today. Today's the 1-year anniversary because it's my son's birthday. So today is the 1-year anniversary of the tornado. And this grandma who always gets the sweet tea, she went to Walmart and she's just like, we're having a rebuild party at the church and we would like you to donate something to go towards the rebuild. And Walmart's just like, well, we've already given out our money for the year. She's like, listen, you're going to give something to this tornado rebuild, right? And she's a little Hispanic lady. You don't say no to little Hispanic old ladies.
Get it, Nana.
They be whipping you with their chanclas and telling you what's up, So she came out of there with a free grill and $2,500.
Go, Nana.
That's right. And she's always bringing her daughter and her grandkids. She's just like, I love you so much. I show my appreciation to every single Sunday. I'm just like, Mama Letitia, you're amazing. I love you. You're wonderful. And she's just like, what do you need, Chris? Whatever you need. You need a cook? She has free beans from Camposanos all the time.
Chris, I have two because I have one part this.
Go for it. So those are some ways to foster family relationships, to get the family involved. As a family personally, we do things where me and my son do stuff together. Then there's things that my wife and my son do stuff together. Then there's things that all three of us do stuff together, things that my wife and I just do together. We're very intentional. Once a week, we're going to do something with the family that has nothing to do with work or church or anything. Just because we're very, very intentional about building that relationship. Because like I said, if you're not building that relationship, you're not going to see that true growth that you want. How many want to have those really deep discussions and see that real spiritual growth? How many want that? That happens only in the place of relationship. Only. All right. I'm going to start this topic and then we'll do part 2 of all this on Thursday, okay? Because I don't think I'm going to finish this up. 10 ways to foster mentor relationships. So we got those peer relationships where we're doing small groups and events and field trips and all sorts of jazz. We got all those things for families to come together and build familial relationships. Now we have mentor relationships. So I first need to define the term mentor for you. Because a lot of us have who here is confused at seeing a difference between a mentor and a spiritual father or mother? Anybody have a little bit of confusion about that? Honestly, after these 2 classes, you'll either be more confused or you'll get some clarity. Or some of you at the end of this is like, oh man, I didn't know I was confused, but I was confused. So a mentor is someone that comes along and trains you in one specific area. All right? So like a football coach is going to train you how to do what? This isn't a trick question. How to do what?
Play football.
Play football. All right, a dance instructor is going to train you in what? A singing instructor is going to train you in what? A youth pastor, all right, what type of guidance is he or she going to give? Spiritual. That's right. So there's always this area of expertise between the mentor and the mentee, okay? And there's always a very specific focus, whether that's sports or arts or spirituality. There's always a specific focus in a mentor-style relationship. And that should always be meeting at least weekly. If you're meeting on a monthly basis, you're basically just maybe a glorified teacher. You're not really a mentor. A mentor is like one-on-one, really intense training with an individual. So, for example, if you're a preteen minister and you have maybe a group of 20 kids, and then out of that 20, you really connect with one. And so you start like building a relationship with that preteen's parents. You start coming over for dinner. You start hanging out more, and you two start to have a little bit more than just a teacher-student relationship. All right, that mentor is much more intense guidance, and maybe the focus is soul health, or spiritual health, or physical health. But there's always a focus that needs to be done at least weekly, sometimes bi-weekly. And what I mean by bi-weekly is like every other week. That's appropriate as well. But if it's like once a month, once every 3 months, like that's not really a mentor. You guys understand?
Yeah.
Like if you've had a mentor in the past, like say there was a time where you had a really intensive training with an individual, and then seasons come and go, which is fine. The Lord works in seasons. We all understand that, correct? And so seasons come and go, and so now you don't have a mentor relationship with them anymore, so you can't refer to them as mentor. So, but the relationship can change. Maybe you go from mentor to now just being friends. And friends, you can not see each other for 6 months and just kind of pick up where you left off, right?
No.
Like I have the best friend at my wedding. I didn't see him for like 6 years. And all of a sudden we went out to lunch because he was in Texas one day, and we met in Waco of all places and ate barbecue, and it was like we had seen each other just like a month ago. Because really good friends, like roles shift at different times. Partnership with the parents. I can't drive that home enough. The reason why a mentor, because say you're in a situation, and this is probably recent memory for some of us, the Catholic Church has been inundated with scandals over the last 20 years of priests sexually abusing young boys. You guys are aware of this, yes? And that is not specific to Catholics. That happens in charismatic churches. It's just the Catholic Church is such a giant organization that it just got written about and made a big deal. But it happens in charismatic circles, it happens in Baptist circles, it happens in families. So you want to protect yourself by having a relationship with the parents as well. And protect the preteen as well. There's one youth pastor I know that meets with a young girl in his youth group once a week at a coffee bar. And I told him, I was just like, listen, you should really have your wife there or someone else. And he's just like, I'm not really interested that way, so I'm good. We're meeting in an open place. I was just like, yeah, but you never know what type of emotion that young woman's having. You know, she may be forming this soul tie with this youth pastor, and he may not even know it.
That's right.
So it's about protecting the leader as much as the person that's being mentored. When you're into foster mentor relationships, when you're actually actively doing it, be a much better listener than advice giver. I can't tell you how many times you're going to get further by just giving an open ear. A lot of times, like preteens or your youth are going to say stuff, you want to jump all over it and be like, well, that's demonic. Like I have a lot of like older people, like that's their way of like mentoring youth. And then they wonder why the youth don't respect them. I'm just like, because you need to listen. You need to listen. Do a whole lot more listening. There's going to be times when you can have an opening, but do a lot more listening so that when you do give your advice, they already know that you care. And be active listening. So sometimes what I do when I'm having conversations with somebody, I'll repeat what they said and I'll ask, is this what you mean? Because I'm just trying to stay active in the conversation. You see, it's one thing for them to talk to you. They know the difference between them talking to a statue and them talking to someone who's listening.
Yeah.
A lot of times I see like CFNI students in these type of situations, and the one listening is really just like waiting for their turn to talk. And they're just like, hurry up and talk, hurry up. I'm a preacher, anointed by the gospel. I need to talk. It's my turn to talk. So just make sure that you are actively showing that respect by listening. Be willing to share about yourself. And there's a caveat to this, is you don't give too many details as well. So be open and honest. Like last Wednesday, I touched on a very sensitive topic in our youth group about circumcision. How many of you would teach on circumcision in a youth group? You're all like, you would? Awesome. So the minute I brought up the term circumcision, there was like the boys who were chuckling, like hee 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 hee. And there was one girl that just put her hands on her ears like this, no. And like we had all sorts of different responses because, I mean, the snip subject is very sensitive to talk about. So in here, I would probably go into a lot more details about what circumcision was. But there, I never used the term penis, I never referred to like anatomic parts. I just simply said, this is a procedure for 8-year-old males where a part of them is cut away. And so I was open and honest in sharing, but very intentional about the language that I used. So if they're having relationship drama, you're like, oh, I've had this sort of thing happen before. Don't go into the nitty-gritty about your relationship drama and throwing your supposed person under the bus and talking about, oh yeah, this is how I felt when he did this or she did this and blah, 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 blah. I've had youth leaders, like there'll be a youth that will talk about, hey, I had sex with my boyfriend. And the youth leader's like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. And then share intimately about the first time they had sex with their boyfriend. Like, that is wildly inappropriate. But you can say, hey, I've been in a similar situation where I gave my heart away too soon, and because of that, all of this stuff happened to me. So you see what I mean by sharing and building trust versus being intentional about the language you use? You guys understand that? Yes. All right. I'll go through number 5, and we'll stop there and pick this up at next class. Keep yourself guarded so that you stay their mentor and not their best friend. I know this sounds counterintuitive because you're like, well, don't I want to be their friend? Well, they have peers to be their best friends. That's what peers are for. But if you become the best friend with a 12-year-old, that's a little bit inappropriate. Because then what the expectations are is that you're going to hang out with them all the time, and they're going to tell all their secrets to you. And if I become the best friend for this 11 or 12-year-old, then what it's becoming is there's always going to be disappointment. And then if there's a time where you try to give some sort of advice, or you try to step into that role of mentor and give them some guidance, like, who are you to tell me what to do? You're my friend. If you break that threshold, think of like in terms of a supervisor. Supervisors are far more effective, not as friends, but staying in that supervisor-employee role where there can be mutual respect, but there has to be a structure where everybody understands the expectations. Like, my pastor is my supervisor. And even though we have a great relationship, and in some ways a friendship, I am very careful that I do not treat him too familiar like, lest I get to the point of disrespecting him.
Yeah.
Because there's some things that I like share with my friends that, you know, I can't talk like that with my pastor. All right? Think about your grandma. All right? Think about the conversations you have with your best friend. Are you going to share those conversations with your grandmother? I don't think so. All right? Mama Letitia at our church, love her, amazing. Hey, I love you, Mama Letitia. But there's some things I'm just not going to share with her. All right? And you need to encourage those peer relationships as well as part of that guidance, those teaching moments. All right? More on this next class. Love you. See you next time.